We have to make sure that these ideas can be debated in a much wider forum than the forum that we have tonight. But it is incumbent on us to sell these ideas to our fellow countrymen and countrywomen. Even if you implemented a few of these ideas, the impact they can make to the country, I believe, would be massive.
We have an economic employment crisis that affects all of us. Over the last 2 years, we were concerned in CDE that not enough was being done to think about how we get rapid growth and, most importantly, inclusive growth, by which we mean jobs for millions and millions of people rather than only for a small, well-educated elite.
And our view is that unless new, more labor-intensive growth path is found, millions of South Africans will never have jobs.
And so we have produced the growth agenda, which we hope will concentrate people's minds on the choices South Africa needs to make and on the key priorities for getting back to as rapid growth as possible.
So what are our priorities? We've come up with 5 areas that we've focused on. The first is jobs. Very important, absolutely top of the list. Linked with that is accelerating inclusive growth. The third is the cities. The fourth is skills. And the fifth is business and government and the relationship. Central to such a new growth strategy must be the recognition that faster growth and employment is possible only if new businesses are able to start up and existing businesses are able to expand.
What's new about this agenda? The first is that we're saying South Africa needs jobs for the workforce we actually have and not the one we would like to have. And that means we need low-skill manufacturing jobs. We need to make our economy as labor-intensive as possible.
In the context of massive unemployment, our economy is geared to too high a skill and capital-intensive basis. Our labor market regime has set high standards. In fact, policy is that we only want decent work in this society. As Trevor Manuel once said, the more adjectives you put in front of jobs, the fewer jobs there will be. Or as Gwedi Mantashe said, that demanding that all new jobs should be decent was putting the cart before the horse. The fact is that current strategy is essentially saying no wage is better than a low wage. It's estimated by the World Bank that well over 80 million manufacturing jobs are going to be leaving China in the next decade or so. Imagine if we could just get a tiny fraction of those jobs.
The second is that South Africa today does not have a strategy for the steady elimination of poverty.
Now, why does South Africa still have so much poverty and inequality? 22 years after apartheid, we have built one of the most redistributive states in the developing world. We provide 17 million people with child grants. Some 80%, 70 to 80% of schools are free. They're free services, healthcare and housing to poorer people. None of this provides the kind of foundation for getting out of multi-generational poverty that employment can.
If you look at all that we've done and the redistributive state that we have, we're actually administering poverty rather than moving people out of this so that they can be individually empowered to have meaningful lives. And the key route out of this is fast growth that's job rich.
So rapid growth, vastly increased employment, better education and training are the vital foundations for the steady elimination of poverty. South Africa has to change the structure of opportunity and wealth. It has to do this for millions and millions of people, not just the insiders. and an even smaller group, the elite. Why do we need to do this? Well, firstly, because of justice, and secondly, in order to grow, we need a much larger skill, wealth, and entrepreneurship base if we're going to get the kind of growth rates and jobs that we need.
So we're in favor of a capable state, but we also want competitive markets. This is absolutely vital for South Africa to make sure that there is access to the economy in every single sector for new firms, for young black entrepreneurs. Otherwise, how are we going to transform our economy?
A friend of mine said this about India, but it applies to South Africa. This country has managed the unusual feat of being crony capitalist and anti-business simultaneously.
South Africa cannot achieve rapid growth if we are simultaneously anti-business. There is a deep-seated suspicion of profit-making activity within many parts of our government, our cabinet, and in and around the ANC. And with this attitude, you want to keep regulating and telling businesses what they can and can't do. And eventually, where I think we are now, you smother the entrepreneurial spirits of these companies, and that's partly why we have such stagnant growth. And we're saying, of course, you need appropriate regulation, but you cannot be anti-business and at the same time say the private sector must provide the jobs and the growth for the country.
It's important to remember the strengths of our economy and our society. We have a robust private sector with world-class companies and productivity. We have a system of cities that's unusual in the developing world. We don't just have one big capital city, we have a number of cities which can, if managed well, absorb immigrants and grow. We have a constitution, and we have broad agreement in this society about the legitimacy of the rule of law and the constitution and the courts. South Africa's future is urban, and it's now time that policies, power, and resources caught up with this reality. The economies of South Africa's major cities are the drivers of national economic growth and employment. The 8 largest cities are home to about 37% of South Africans, yet they account for nearly 60% of economic activity. But South Africa has always been a reluctant urbanizer. It's noteworthy how little attention is paid to the cities in the NDP, for example. But if our economy is to grow more quickly, and if it is to do so in a way that creates mass employment, this will only happen predominantly in the cities. South Africa needs to end its ambivalence about urbanization, and an urban-led growth and employment strategy is the only way forward.
The recommendations that have been made are made on the basis that they would have the greatest impact on the creation of jobs and attaining a higher degree of growth. And jobs really are at the center of the plan that has been detailed here tonight. And at a most fundamental level, freedom without the security and the dignity of work is worth really very little. Without a vast amount and proportion of our people being able to be sufficient in terms of their ability to cater for their own families, our freedom has become particularly hollow. There's no justice in it at all. So these plans are particularly important, and in fact they do address the issue of inequality in the long term. It is also our responsibility as we move forward to advocate for a lot of the ideas that have been tabled here.
I don't know how much work went into the preparation of these documents. I find them extremely important, thought-provoking, and they invite some interrogation, as indeed has come from the floor, as to how to process the thinking there, take it forward, improve on the suggestions. We thank you very much for that, Anne.
We can change South Africa and the future of South Africans within a generation if we take the tough choices that we need.
So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. We're in an era now of hashtag everything must fall. And we're going a bit against the stream. We've got hashtag growth must rise.